Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here at the end of the road and today we're going to take a look at my 2016 XSR900. Retro bikes are a huge category now. Is how I wanted to start this review, but that's a bit of a silly phrase, isn't it? Ever since the clock ticked over on New Year's 1980, there's been a bit of a refusal to let the 70s die. The XSR series from Yamaha is just one more attempt at keeping the 70s going, just a little bit longer. And whether you think they're just nostalgia bait or not, I'm certainly pleased that Yamaha is making them. Today I'll be giving a brief overview and review of my 2016 Yamaha XSR900. Let's go. At its most basic level, the XSR900 really does seem like a reskin of the MT09. Same 4-stroke inline triple 840cc cross-plane engine, same frame, same suspension platforms. These similarities are only skin deep though. Delving deeper into the XSR, it's clear that Yamaha made conscious decisions about how to differentiate the XSR from its other CP3 stablemates. The aforementioned MT09, the Tracer 900, and the Nikan of all things. The most obvious change to a casual rider is the seating position. The XSR has a higher seat than the MT07, and the longer tank on the XSR pushes the rider about 50 millimeters further back in the saddle. The result is a slightly sportier, more lean-forward riding position, which Yamaha said was intended to let the rider feel more comfortable moving around the XSR's one-piece, two-tier seat. My butt tells me that Yamaha might have gone a bit overboard on the XSR seat. This thing is rock solid, and I feel myself quickly getting sore on longer rides. The seat also has a pretty steep curve, creating a sort of backstop for when you give it the beans. While this is appreciated, the seat itself is actually quite short front to back, and the lack of space to move around means that the seat woes are worse than still. Otherwise, the riding position is incredibly comfortable, very upright, and paired with foot pegs that are low enough to offer plenty of legroom, but still give good ground clearance, makes for a bike that's very pleasant to both commute on while still feeling sporty.
To give you a better idea of the XSR's rider triangle, here's a photo of my friend at 5'11" and myself at 6'5". As you can see, there's plenty of legroom either way, and with middle of the road 32.7-inch seat height, I'm sure that most people will be able to flat-foot it just fine.
The suspension, while operating on the same platform as the MT, has been made stiffer. The front forks have been changed from single rate to dual rate springs. Despite this, suspension swaps still seem to be a common upgrade on the XSR. The previous owner of this bike, in an effort to make the bike handle even better, has affixed it with an Öhlins rear spring and an Andriani fork kit in the front. I haven't ridden a stock XSR, so I can't comment on the quality of the original suspension, but the stock suspension is adjustable for preload and rebound, both front and rear, but not compression. I have mixed feelings about the suspension on this particular bike. The rear shock is fantastic, and the bike picks up extremely well out of corners, and the rear doesn't fuss about in general. The front, however, is probably a bit too much for street riding. I can't seem to dial in the front compression, and the bike seems to skip over bumps more than soaking them up, resulting in a lot of judder over rough patches. Both the MT and XSR have the same braking setup with dual 298mm discs in the front and a single 245mm disc in the rear. Once again, the previous owner has made some upgrades on this particular bike. In this case, the front master cylinder has been swapped for a Brembo unit. I haven't heard or read as many complaints on the stock brakes from other XSR riders, but the Brembo setup feels incredibly progressive and stops really well. In a motorcycle market where classic styled throwbacks are all the rage, Yamaha is making the same play they made back in the 1970s. Back then, Yamaha was struggling to find a way to stand out against the superbikes of the day, the Honda CB750 and Kawasaki Z1. How could they stand out against those bikes without being viewed as simple copycats? The answer, Yamaha thought, was to try something different. They introduced in 1976 the Yamaha XS750. The XS750 featured an inline triple engine and a shaft drive. And while that shaft drive may have been ditched, up against other wannabe classics like the Kawasaki Z900 RS and CB1100, Yamaha is again attempting to stand out with the torquey triple. It's resulted in a bike with a bit of genuine historical lineage and a lot of modern day fun.
Seated within the XSR900 is the 847cc CP3 engine, representing a merging of two of Yamaha's efforts to distinguish itself from other motorcycle brands. Yamaha has been the only manufacturer of the Japanese Big Four to pursue triples as a primary engine in their lineup, and only really have Triumph as competition in the space. The cross-plane part of the cross-plane triple engine is a slightly misleading moniker at best and marketing fluff at worst. The concept of a cross-plane engine was designed to solve a problem inherent to a typical inline-4 engine. There exists a time in a standard I4 engine when all four pistons come to a dead stop, 2 at top dead center and 2 at bottom dead center. As you can hopefully see by my incredibly rudimentary diagram, the crankshaft needs to rotate 180 degrees before having another piston complete its stroke. Yamaha claims that inertial torque created by the crankshaft leads to less user-friendly power delivery. By switching from a 180 degree crankshaft to only having 90 degrees between throws, you never have all four pistons stopped at the same time, and the inertial torque created by the crankshaft is therefore smoothed out. The name cross-plane comes from the fact that the crankshaft appears to be in the shape of a cross when viewed from head-on. Yamaha originally used the cross-plane technology in their M1 MotoGP bike, and then introduced it into the R1 in 2009. Now, the CP3. Almost all triple engines are made in such a way that there are 120 degrees between each throw of the piston. I couldn't find any examples of an inline triple engine which has two pistons firing at the same time or on the same plane. That is to say, there's nothing particularly different about Yamaha's triples when compared to something like a Triumph Daytona 675. Certainly not enough to warrant giving it a fancy schmancy name. Naming conventions aside, the CP3 is an incredibly fun engine to play with. It may sound cliche at this point, but a triple really is the best of both worlds, offering really good grunt down low while still having that power you want up top. The engine is rated by Yamaha for 113 horsepower at 10,000 RPM and 65 foot-pounds of torque at 8,500 RPM. But numbers aren't everything, of course, and governments could honestly take a page out of Yamaha's book when it comes to flattening the curve, as the torque curve on the XSR isn't so much a curve as it is a flat line. Check out this dyno graph from Cycle World and see what I'm talking about.
Peak torque may be at 8,500 RPM, but you're also making the vast majority of that torque way down low at 4,000 RPM. The CP3 engine is so much fun to play with precisely because it's almost always in the power band. Give it some gas from a stoplight and you're probably just about in the power. It's always on tap, regardless of what speed and regardless of what gear you're in. If you're coming from an inline 4 bike like me, you may find the 11,300 RPM red line comes up a little faster than you'd expect, but the torque is really addicting and never gets old. This XSR is equipped with a Scorpion slip-on pipe, and it's still pretty quiet all things considered, but it does have an incredibly nice snap crackle pop on deceleration, which combined with the super light slipper clutch makes aggressive downshifts very fun, and they're usually accompanied by a lot of giggles as the engine burbles its way back to idle. I've ridden other CP3 equipped bikes like the aforementioned Niken and Tracer 900, and I found both of those bikes to have pretty noticeable engine vibrations, especially the Niken. I was worried that the vibrations would turn me off the XSR900 as well, but it's not nearly as bad. Yamaha has included a counterbalancing shaft in the CP3 engine which spins opposite to the crankshaft, so it seems that Yamaha are at least aware of the triple's inherently vibey nature. There's still a bit of unpleasant vibration between 5,000 and 6,000 RPM, but Yamaha has geared the bike such that you probably won't be staying in that range for very long. The XSR really isn't the highway mile muncher that the Tracer is, so my problem of cruising at highway speeds right in that vibration range hasn't really come up on the XSR. Cruise control would be a nice addition, but it's not really a deal breaker. The XSR900 also features throttle by wire, which I found works incredibly well. The throttle is predictable and responsive. It never feels jerky or laggy on acceleration. Having electronically controlled throttle, or Yamaha chip controller throttle as they like to call it, also allows the addition of 3 swappable riding modes, switched from a dedicated button on the right handle. A mode provides the most direct throttle response. B mode is an incredibly neutered mode that limits power delivery and just doesn't feel very good. It's meant for rainy conditions, but even then I'd rather just use the right wrist. I find myself usually leaving it in standard mode, which is right between the two. I don't find A mode to be jumpy or aggressive, but standard just really strikes the right balance for me. There's no user programmable mode like some newer bikes have, but I felt like what was on offer was more than adequate. A mode really comes alive when you're pushing the bike on back roads, where the increased throttle response is immediately noticeable. Power comes on sooner, and the bike really powers its way out of corners. Engine braking is also a little less than I would have expected from an engine of this size, and I definitely find myself making more use of the brakes than I usually do when stopping for lights. Downshifting a little sooner than I usually would brings you into a higher RPM range where engine braking is a little bit stronger, so perhaps this will just take a little more getting used to on my part. Even if you downshift a little hard or a little too fast, the XSR comes with a really nice assist and slipper clutch that prevents the rear wheel from skipping. The assisted clutch is also incredibly light, and paired with Yamaha's usual smooth gearboxes, it makes running your way up or down through the gears really enjoyable. Outside of the uncomfortable seat and mildly vibey engine, there really isn't much to complain about here. Yamaha says that the XSR is supposed to represent a reimagined version of the XS series of bikes from the 1970s, and I'd say they've done a brilliant job of carrying on that heritage. The paint scheme for this particular model is built to commemorate the 60th anniversary of Yamaha Motor Company. The yellow speed block design is a classic Yamaha livery that was most famously used by Kenny Roberts in AMA Dirt Track, Superbike, and World Grand Prix racing throughout the 70s. King Kenny actually won the 1973 AMA Dirt Track Series aboard an XS 650 with this same livery. I'm a fan of the XSR's looks in general, but the bright yellow and historic paint scheme make this specific model really pop. And a set of gold forks on the 60th anniversary model look fantastic. I like the stock taillight, but as usual, Yamaha's giant orange lollipop signals ruin the classic look of the bike in my opinion. Those should definitely be the first thing to go if you're looking to pick up an XSR yourself. The tail tidy with an underseat LED light is almost certainly illegal, but they really clean up the back end of this particular bike. I'm not sure if Yamaha intended to add a little more pizzazz to the bike or what, but the asymmetrical gas cap and gauge are something I could do without.
Once again, you'll have to forgive my very rudimentary graphic design skills, but tell me this isn't an improvement over the real thing.
Speaking of the gauge, I'm a big fan. It's a single rounded LCD display with a tack that goes around the outside. It's easy to see in bright sunlight or at night, and brightness is adjustable. The display packs a lot of information into a small area, but that does mean that you'll be cycling through all of your options pretty regularly. You've got your standard odometer, trip A, trip B, average fuel consumption, current fuel consumption, time, air temp, engine temp, all taking up the same little piece of screen real estate at the bottom. Other than that, you can see your riding mode, your TC status, and of course, your speed.
Yamaha has really encouraged customization with the XSR line. They sell a range of official accessories like this rear seat cowl that really sells the retro racer look. I'm a big fan of the stripped down cafe look of my XSR, but a quick Instagram search reveals that there are tons of really uniquely done up bikes out there for you to draw inspiration from. The XSR has definitely got to be the most widely modified bike of the last couple of years, and I think that's super cool.
So who is this bike for? Why can't we let go of classic designs? The XSR isn't a classic motorcycle. Yamaha admits as much. This bike, this design exercise, is so clearly planted in the 21st century that it begs the question of its own existence. It's here in front of me in 2021, but it's doing its best impression of 1973. Yamaha has the gall to say that this isn't just nostalgia bait, and then offers it in a Kenny Roberts tribute paint job. It's a conundrum. We yearn for the past, but we refuse to give up our modern comforts. You could go buy a yellow Speedblock RZ350, but you won't. Why? We want ABS, we want rider aids, we want fuel injection, and we want a fat rear tire. But we also want to feel like we're in the 1970s, whether we remember that decade or not. When Honda tried to make an actual retro, they got flogged for it. Down on power, too heavy, they said. The CB1100 was killed off for the North American market after only a few short years, even after they made concessions for fuel injection. So the XSR sits in a very weird space. If anything, I think the XSR is a perfect physical manifestation of nostalgia itself. The past is perfect in our memories, and we only want to remember the good parts, right? You want to remember the great memories you made on your old XS. But you don't want to remember having to sink carbs. You don't want to remember the non-perforated disc brakes. The XSR is like a classic rock radio station. Forget the trash, nothing but the hits. It's for the people who are nostalgic for the past, remembered or otherwise, but not so nostalgic that they're willing to forgo modernity. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that, but perhaps it says something about the human psyche and the way in which we deal with and move through nostalgia and yearning for the past. Whatever this bike is meant to be, or whoever it's meant to be for, it is a damn fun bike and a beautiful piece of machinery. And I, for one, am glad that Yamaha made it.